No, the guy stares at you all year. Like he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. And now we've made that elf on the shelf. And
oh yeah, between the elf on the shelf and Santa Claus, we've got this real like panopticon idea for Christmas, like this inescapable
it is. It's the Christmas opticon.
Yeah.
Very upsetting. I actually worried that he could see me when I went to the bathroom.
That's a legit thing to worry about.
Yeah.
There were times where people would talk about he knows when you're sleeping, he knows you're awake, so I'd flip him off. Because I'm like, you can see this. Ha ha ha.
See, I got in trouble for that because I used to stay up late and read books like a little delinquent I was. Mm-hmm. And I had my light bulb turned to the point where I could just touch it to turn it on and off in case I heard my parents. Mm-hmm. But my mom figured it out and told me he knows when you're awake. And I was like, oh, God. And
then you're sitting there like, I can't go to sleep. I'm so nervous that he knows when I'm awake.
Yeah, like, because I grew up Catholic. I'm not now, but I grew up Catholic. And they were like, well, God can see you everywhere. I'm like, when I'm peeing? I don't like that.
Yeah.
Not good. So I didn't care that my parents lied to me about Santa, but I did care that he could see me in the bathroom.
The legitimate thing to be concerned about even to this day, so.
Yes, consent is so important.
I like the classic,
look up the Conan O'Brien video of Liam Neeson auditioning for Mall Santa. And when he gets to that part, it's like, he knows when you're asleep. He knows when you're awake.
Jenna, I was also going to say that I like I feel like it's such a classic, like, Nerds First Rebellion to stay up past bedtimes reading under the covers, even when we're not supposed to be.
Yep, it totally is. I loved it. And they made it sound like I was doing something terribly wrong and Santa's not going to bring you presents. Like, Santa does not want me to read? I'm pretty sure Santa would want me to read. I got a book for Christmas and it was Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Song. And when I got it, one of the first things I said was, Santa wants me to read this after bedtime.
I think the darkest thing for me about Santa is the songs sound so cheery, but there's a message on, if you're not good, you're not going to get, you're not, sorry, you didn't make my standards. Kind of like the judgmental thing, but it's almost like when you give, you being professors or a supervisor training, and you have people under you, and if you tell them, hey, if you're good, I'm going to give you this grade or this eval if you're good, and then not defining what that is, that creates a lot of anxiety.
There you go. So for me, I'd want to find out more about Krampus, because even when Santa says naughty and nice, the naughty is always wrapped in a story of forgiveness. I've never seen a Santa story where he yelled at a kid and said, you were wrong and you're not getting any gifts. Rather, when we see the Santa stories and adults are explaining why the kid didn't get a Christmas gift from Santa or got a lump of coal, it's in a context of forgiveness and we're going to do better next time. And this is a consequence of this. So if Krampus is really his twin brother who does all the real nasty, dirty work, then I think Santa's fine.
I was just, funny enough, I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago about the history of Santa Claus and some of the earlier stuff, like his, a lot of the myths that St. Nicholas have were, what about the pickled children? Do you know about the pickled children?
No.
I'll thumbnail it for you. 3 boys go and try to get some food before they go home after doing all their chores, and this guy kills them, cuts them up, throws them in a pickling vat, and St. Nicholas shows up. He feels that their spirits are there, so he takes them out, and then they come back to life. Or then there's the one where the guy has 3 daughters, and they don't have enough money for a dowry, so he decides he's going to show up and throw money in their shoe, and so they have dowries because otherwise their father was going to send them out to be prostitutes. So that's, and I know sex worker, but that's what the tale is. But anyway, so he throws these 3 bags of coins that land in their shoes, and it has some connection to hanging up your stockings for stuff. you know. So
And girls not to be hookers.
Yeah.
and also that but it just sucks that like at that time period there are those two options, sex or marriage
Yeah.
with a dowry.
Yeah.
So those are some of the weird Saint Nicholas tales.
And Jane Austen heroine is that's your third one, but good
Oh
luck.
yes, that's true.
Good luck with that, because there's not many positions available for that one. So.
No, but it is interesting that like there's so many dark stories around him, and you know, and all of how I think it was Martin Luther who tried to move away from the idea of someone other than baby Jesus bringing you presents. But then you could baby Jesus can't really scare children. So then he had like his ash claws, and all these people were like covered in soot, or they were, but he had his like scary minions.
So Martin
Like
Luther
Sith
really
sprites?
needed a marketing team.
He
to help
really
him
did.
put this together. You need to get marketing on it.
Yeah, so it does come from these sort of dark things. So I suppose finding the dead body of Santa Claus turning you into Santa Claus kind of goes along with historic tradition.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, that vibe is something that gets continued today. I was reading an article that was a list of every holiday-based horror movie and was ranking like how few to how many horror movies there are based on each holiday, and Christmas handily won. It beat the hell out of Halloween. There are far more Christmas-based horror movies than there are Halloween-based horror movies.
Come on. All I can think of is Gremlins.
Oh, there's a lot, so many, like there's Krampus, there's Santa's sleigh, there's all kinds of like Christmas,
Santa's sleigh.
yeah, sleigh.
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Silent Night, Deadly Night, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. Like there are lots and lots and lots.
I mean, Home Alone is pretty horrific.
Yeah, they weren't even counting Home Alone. They were counting the movies that are straight out horror. They weren't counting that Saw prequel as a Christmas horror, but I think it was something like 30 or so like American Christmas-based horror movies. So there's also something there's something potentially dark about Christmas that people like to explore. But I mean, that goes all the way back to A Christmas Carol. People are like, A Christmas Carol is a heartwarming Christmas tale. It's like, it's also kind of a horror morality story, because that dude gets visited by a lot of ghosts, and there's a lot of scary stuff that happens to him.
Scrooged is the best version of that.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
That rotten zombified skeleton Marley from Scrooge has haunted me for 30 years. The shot of him holding Bill Murray out of the window.
I'm gonna have to disagree and say that the best fanfic of A Christmas Carol would be the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yeah. That's pretty
Not as scary though.
Not as scary now.
No,
still scary. But the best, I think, part of that is they recognize, like, Gonzo and his little rat buddy as the narrators, and they're like, isn't this a little scary for children? And they're like, no, this is literature.
I asked people online, does Santa need a therapist, or would Santa make a good therapist? I get an interesting mix of replies. And rather than lead y'all, it's like, what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to depend on what we consider to be therapy, right? I hate to make. I even though I have taught abnormal psych, I'm not a huge fan of DSM and diagnoses and whatnot. What I get curious about with Santa is the slightly obsessional quality, right? Of checking lists and having to have things in a certain way. But for me, I really think of all these things as, again, this comes from being a psychoanalyst, like these all serve some purpose, right? These were all at some point life-saving, and they've only become problematic if you really can't get everything that you want, right? Maybe there's a better defense you want that will free up more energy, allow you to have more of your feelings. And so, things I might wonder if Santa were on my couch would be things like, well, all this kind of checking lists and focusing on gifts, what are we not seeing, right? If I have a patient who is obsessed about something, I do begin to wonder what's in the periphery here that we're not talking about. And so if I had Santa, I might want to say, well, what else is going on? Yeah, I know you got your list. I know you got your busy night. What else is going on? Is there anything else you might want out of life? And so, you know, I think I would take it from a less pathological approach and say, let's see what else is out there that you might, maybe the list obsession is, he's got something, you know, going with Miss Claus that they need to work out, or, you know, maybe there is some discontent among the elves and working conditions or whatnot. Let's talk about that, right? Instead of just focusing on this job that he feels like he has to get done, you know, check this list multiple times, get these gifts all delivered on one night. You know, see how that would change things.
Should Santa Claus get a therapist?
I think
Should
Santa Claus should
be
get
a
a trainer.
therapist?
Santa
He
Claus
what?
should get a trainer.
Trainer.
The
Because
physical trainer?
yes, I feel like he could be a little healthier. And maybe we stop drinking so much. 'Cause,
Well,
you know,
So to
Red
take it
Nose.
back to the Santa Claus, the Tim Allen movie, in that movie, once he starts becoming Santa Claus, the magic of Santa forces his body into that traditional like Santa shape. Like he grows a beard instantly, he plumps out, and he like tries to lose the weight, and he absolutely cannot do it. So it could also be just that the magic of Santa says, listen here, fat man, you're going to be a fat man no matter what you try to do. So just roll with it.
The
So,
belief magic shapes him. Or
Yeah,
if he is
it
just
could be-
one guy, he's immortal, and he
Yeah.
might not have to worry about that stuff.
so
that's true.
but
That's true.
Yeah.
it depends on what sort of Santa canon you're subscribing to. But I would say that, like, yeah, if we're looking at it from a different non-Santa Claus-y type of canon, then yeah, maybe he needs to, you know, eat those carrots too, you know, not just the cookies.
The idea that he's like staring in everyone else's life, maybe he needs to focus on his own.
Mm.
know?
Oh,
What is he avoiding thinking about his own life?
one more point against Santa actually getting healthy. In the Rankin Bass, I think the Rankin Bass, whatever it was called, the one that was like when Santa first becomes Santa. And
Santa Claus
he
is
was
coming
skinny
to
then.
town.
is that what it is? It starts where he's like a skinny redheaded kid, but he's dressed like Santa, and I'm like, ooh, no, hard pass. I'll pass on the skinny redheaded punk on being Santa.
Because what does that kid know about opulence,
Yeah.
right? What does that kid know about muchness?
Yeah. He's like, hey, it's Christmas time. You guys eat your sweets. I'm not going to eat any, though. I'm just going to stand here silently judging you.
Yeah, I don't know that works as well. He's like, yeah, kids, I don't know, like, what is he judging the naughty and nice on, right?
Yeah.
If he gets like, if he becomes a CrossFitter or something, he's like, you were not doing your snatches, and I, you know, naughty.
But then there's
Santa
also
to you.
the other Santas, you know, because like the mall Santas and the street Santas. And my mom explained that to me because I was like, well, isn't he busy? It's like 3 days before Christmas.
Right.
And she said, well, a lot of his helpers dress up as him because he's really busy, and they want, like, if you tell them what you want, like, they'll go back to the North Pole. So what about those guys?
I think some of them are part of the argument of why Santa could make a good therapist, because you need to have some of that quality to you to be able to deal with those little kids, to say the right thing, where you're not committing the parents to any particular present, but you're keeping the kid hopeful. I was reading the other day about these parents who freaked out over some mall Santa saying a kid could not get a particular present. It's like, well, that's not up to no, you've got to have more people skills than that.
In terms of whether or not he'd make a good therapist, you know, my first association is to like a Mr. Rogers kind of therapy. And I think that's great. I think it would work for some people, you know, like this big teddy bear who just is kind of positive. Could he be, I think I was looking at the Twitter feed, Travis, and some of the responses you were getting, like, you know, don't take notes, which I thought was a great, what an original response. And too judgmental because he's going to say who's naughty or nice. You know, let's be honest. I'll tell you, as a therapist, I often have opinions about people, but I do keep them to myself. And then I take it to my own supervisor and therapist and say, why am I being so judgmental about this? So I think he's got potential. I think, you know, I train a lot of therapists in grad school too. And one thing I always say is, you know, there's a lid for every pot. So there's probably a good patient, if Santa were interested in becoming a therapist, that he could help. And I also think he'd be an interesting person to have on the couch just to see what else he wants out of life, or is he really satisfied with what he's doing?
Yeah. So about whether, does Santa need a therapist? I say yes. I will circle back to that. Would Santa make a good therapist? I'm not sure. And I'm going to say that because it's like, as therapists, we're Jedi. We're not Sith, right? The Sith deal in absolutes. Is a kid going to come in to see Santa and Santa's like, well, you've been naughty, so I got no therapeutic interventions for you. Here's some coal. Like, do better next year.
Yeah, Santa's
like,
not going to call them on that kind of thing.
I think he could absolutely use a therapist because he's so isolated. Like he is. I mean, we don't want to diagnose people we've never met, and I never met Santa, but he has a little bit of a voyeuristic trait. We can all agree on that, I think.
Sure.
You know, he is constantly watching. He's like the Sauron of the holiday season.
Santa is Sauron. I love it.
The eye of Santa.
The eye of Santa is ever watchful.
Oh, and then there are presents underneath the mountain. Anyway, if I were a visual artist, I'd really have something. But you know, he could really use somebody to talk to. You know, somebody who's maybe like a little more grounding. Like, so Santa, what do you do for you? What is, you know, I know what you do for others. You give, you are a giver. But like, do you think maybe you need some more boundaries? Every child, every year. What about you? What about Mrs. Claus? How's the relationship?
He's like, ho, 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 it's fine. And she's like,
right. Mrs. Claus is like,
I mean, you know what he does for himself? He takes off 364 days a year.
yeah. I would say, yeah, I agree about him not making a good therapist as well. Because he's too absolute. It would be, ho, 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 good job, kiddo. Ho, 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 great job, kiddo. Like, you know, I don't think that he could deal with the true complexities and ambiguity of life the way that you would need an actual therapist to do so. He has no edge to him, and so I don't think that he has any way of like helping deal with the kid who has edge to them at all.
Oh, he is definitely not a client-centered therapist in the Carl Rogers tradition, where they're not supposed to judge.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more of a reality therapist, where it's like, no, you call it. It's like, it's this way or it's that.
I think he would be a behavioralist. That would be his style. Just that with the reinforcement and stuff, and it's kind of dichotomous. You good or bad, naughty or nice, and a little vague with what that means. You know, if we were to define his standards based on the old classic Christmas songs, you're right with the obsessional trait.
Yeah, they have a little more of a blunt view of things. And there's several people online. There were a lot who thought Santa would be a great therapist, and a few said it's like he'd be a terrible therapist. He judges people are naughty or nice.
Yeah.
He knows if you've been bad or good. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't analyze it. He just knows.
He just knows. I don't. Yeah. I mean, he just senses it. You know. Like a paladin can sense evil, so too can Santa. And as far as whether he could use a therapist, I was gonna say no, but Justine, you raised some very excellent points, so I'm gonna shift it over to yeah. I mean, give the guy can't hurt. You know, pretty much everybody can benefit from some therapy, at least to just talk it out, dust out the cobwebs a little bit, and see what's up. So.
I was wondering like if Grinch was also part of that persona, that rejected piece.
No, the Grinch isn't dark enough though, right? I mean, because the Grinch actually becomes saved. Krampus is not interested in being saved. He's dragging you to hell.
Yeah, if Krampus's heart grows 3 sizes that day, that just energizes him to do more of what he's already doing.
Right.